Welcome. I know there's a few attendees here. We'll have some more probably joining in and out during the session as we're going along. We'll kind of start out with introductions. So those of you who don't know me, I know all of our panelists do, but I'm Deja. I'm one of the admissions counselors at Wagner, and I'll just kind of be here to help host and get these questions of yours answered. As we're kind of moving through this session, if you guys as attendees have any questions, you can chat them to me. So on the right side of your screen, there should be a little chat box for you, and you can just directly message me to ask your questions to our panelists. From there, I'll kind of pass it over to you guys as students. Introduce yourselves, let us know where you are from and what your major is, what year you are, kind of the basic introductory things. Jessica, we'll start with you, and then Erin and Amy.
Sure. So, hi, I'm Jessica. I'm a junior business major with a marketing concentration. I'm also a minor in government and politics. I'm from Long Island, so calling you from there today. And then I'm just kind of involved all over campus. I'm in the marching band, I'm on the campus activities board, and I'm on several committees and other organizations throughout campus. So I would be happy to answer campus life questions and things like that.
Thanks, Erin.
Hi, my name is Erin Weisert. I am a junior nursing major. I am from Southlake, Texas, so that is where I am now, far away from Wagner. I'm on the women's water polo team. I'm vice president of the Student Nurses Association. Love Wagner. Happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy. I am a junior arts administration major from Connecticut, so that's where I'm calling you from. I am heavily involved on campus. I am involved in Greek life. I am the vice president of administrations for my sorority, and I am heavily involved in student-run theater, as well as around the theater department in general. So I can answer any questions about anything with that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. To kind of kickstart this panel, I'll sort of ask something a little bit general. And for those of you attendees who are just joining us, feel free to shoot your questions into the chat. I'm happy to ask our panelists for you. But just to kind of kick us off, I know you guys, we've already talked about this a little bit, are kind of wrapping up your semesters, but since you all are upperclassmen, maybe you could talk a little bit about maybe your favorite class that you've had at Wagner. Amy, why don't we start with you, and then Erin, and then Jessica?
I think my favorite class that I've taken is public speaking with Mickey Tenenbaum. Public speaking is a class that is one of our gen ed requirements on campus, and it's really unique because it's not a class that many people think that they want to take, but it's just so enjoyable because you basically what we did in the class was we just wrote a bunch of different speeches, and I had Jess in the class with me, and we just had a lot of fun with picking out different topics to write our speeches on. And our class was so supportive, and our professor really challenged us. So it was really beneficial for life after college too.
So I took public speaking with Tenenbaum. Great class, highly recommend. Agree with everything that Amy said. I would say that my favorite class I took at Wagner is Religion Man-Made with Dr. Kelber. It's one of the honors classes that I've taken, and it's something that is not in my concentration for major, but I found it so interesting, and Kelber's so great. I've taken several classes with him. I think that's my favorite one.
So my favorite class was actually another honors class to kind of tag off of both of them because I think both of those were also honors classes.
Yeah.
But my favorite was Civil Liberties and Human Rights. It's a Gov class. It's taught by Dr. Ghosh. And as an honors course, Dr. Ghosh taught it like a master's seminar. So we would all come in every day with the readings and we would just debate. We would just chat and talk, and there was no real like lecture aspect to it. Dr. Ghosh kind of guided our discussions and allowed us to formulate our opinions and created a really safe space so that we could all share those opinions without judgment. And it was a really awesome, it was my second gov class, but it was a really awesome way to kind of explore where my opinions and my ideas like lie within all of the spectrums of politics. And that really set me up to kind of be prepared to take more gov classes. So I really loved that one.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And I know you guys mentioned kind of a lot of different classes. You mentioned the professors as well. And while we're on that vein, something that we talk a lot about with our admitted students and our prospective students when they come to visit is that our professors do have office hours. Do you guys want to talk briefly about that? And I know that it might look a little bit different depending on your major as well. So if you want to talk a little bit about, what an office hour looks like for a professor, and maybe also touch on your academic advisor as well. Because a lot of times, most of the time, your academic advisor is going to be a professor that's within your department field of study. So yeah, if you guys could touch on that. And why don't we start with Erin, then Jessica, and then Amy.
Okay. So as far as office hours go, I know that in especially like my first 2 years of school, there was something that I utilized quite a lot. Because one of the great things that I think about them is because Wagner is so small and we have those small classes that like your professors are so available to you. So I know that I, especially in like some of my psychology classes, if I was ever like having questions, I know that I could always go like see my professors during their office hours, and they're all really super helpful and so available, which is one of the great perks of Wagner's size and the community. My advisor is one of my nursing professors. And even though there are 76 of us in our cohort, I think, we like each have our own advisor. She's been my advisor since sophomore year. It's Professor Mark Antonio. Love her. She's great for, anything that I could ever need, like as far as like gen ed requirements, or I know that I had for next semester, I had to make sure that I got an I designation. And so she like emailed the registrar for me and like made sure that like my AP credits like all lined up and that I had everything good to go for graduation. So she's been very, very helpful for me.
So office hours for me have been a really great place to workshop my ideas. I take a lot of classes that kind of require me to write papers and kind of build out these big ideas into things that are like readable and also that have research to back them up. And so I've tended to use my professor's office hours as ways to just kind of go and say, this is what I'm thinking. These are all the things that I want to lay out on the table. And they're really there to help you refine those ideas. And so I like to use the office hours as those ways. And also just to kind of to connect and network. I mean, these people are also in the field that they're teaching in most of the time. And so it's a great way if you're looking for career advice or post-graduation like education advice, just to kind of go to their office hours and say, hey, you did something that I want to do. Can you give me some advice on how to get there? And they are really, really helpful with that. And then my academic advisor is Dr. Beretta. He's a marketing professor because that's my concentration in business. And he's been really helpful. I'm taking a class with him now also, which has given us a chance to really, for him to kind of see how I am academically and for me to learn more about his teaching style and more about his path, which has been great. And so kind of the beauty of having an academic advisor in your major is that you'll probably be in the classroom with them at some point. So you'll really get to know them and form a closer relationship than if our academic advising came out of one central office like it does at some bigger schools.
For me, I really utilize the office hours a lot. All my years. Like Jess said, just like to really connect with your professors and touch base with them. The really awesome thing about Wagner is that we're such a small school that your professors do know who you are. So when you go to their office hours, they know exactly what you're talking about. They know exactly how to help you with some situations that you're having. For my economics class, I would go to the office hours a lot just to touch base and review the tests that we took, just to make sure that I was on the right track to succeed later on in the course. And for my academic advisor, I have Professor Price, who is one of the professors for the Arts Administration program. He is wonderful. He is very successful in the field, and he knows what he's talking about so much. And I go to him for career advice, and he has given me tips on what internships to get involved with. So utilizing his office hours and just having a close connection with him is really helping me so far, and is going to set me up very well for my senior internship next year.
Awesome, thanks. And that's a perfect segue as well, because I did get a question about internships. So I know all three of you are very busy people at Wagner. Maybe you guys could touch on a couple of things, kind of a twofold question. And maybe Amy, I'll start with you, since you did mention internships. How do you go about maybe getting an internship, and the three of you being in such different majors, that's going to look very different for each of you. So I'd love for you guys to kind of talk about what your experiential learning looks like at Wagner. And yeah, so why don't we start there? And Amy, you can kick us off, and then I'll throw it to Jessica and then Erin.
So for me, with the Arts Administration program, our senior year, the second semester of our senior year is a full-time internship. So when I first joined the program, my advisor said, you know, you don't have to have internships leading up to it. Your first internship could be your senior year internship, but I knew that I wanted to try different internships just to see where I kind of wanted to fall with the arts administration. Since arts administration is such a wide field, a wide umbrella, there's so many different things you can do. So with figuring out an internship for me, what I do is I would research different places, and my advisor connected me with a small off-Broadway theater my sophomore year. And once I interviewed there and secured the internship, what I did was I just planned my schedule around that. So what I did was I had classes on 2 days and interned on the other 2 days. And then the really important thing that my advisor suggested was leaving one day for yourself. So what my schedule looked like was interning on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then my Friday was free, just so I could finish up any work that my internship gave me, and I could work on schoolwork, and just a day to recharge and, you know, like relax, and because it is stressful sometimes. But it was so beneficial doing this, and taught me so much, and it's just kind of helped me figure out what path I want to go down.
So I have very similar kind of answers to what Amy was saying. I started in the arts admin major actually, and then changed last semester. Bless you, Deja. Over to the business major last semester, and so I had also been told you don't need to do these internships before your senior year, but my sophomore spring, I want to say, I have to think back so far. My sophomore spring, I accepted my first internship, and I found that through research. And I also knew that I wanted a broad nonprofit perspective. And so my first internship actually wasn't in the arts. It was just in a nonprofit based on like civic responsibility. And so I did that, and then I did an arts-based internship, and that's how I learned that I didn't want to continue with the arts administration major, but really wanted to focus more on business. And so I will say I highly recommend internships. I think that they really do help you kind of refine where you want to go. My current internship is at the Council on Foreign Relations, and through this internship, I've learned more about kind of what post-secondary degrees I want to get, which is really amazing. I got to talk to a lot of people and learn more about the path that I want to go on. And so internships are more than just about kind of the work experience and something to put on your resume. It's about the connections you make and kind of where you think you're going to go next. And the beauty is, because these are all short-term opportunities, you're not kind of stuck in a position that you don't love. So you do it for a few months, you gain all of the experience you can, and then you can leave it and say, I never want to do that again, if that's the case. Or I really love this, and now you've opened doors to doing more of this in the future.
Okay, so the way that my internship experiences are very different than Jessica and Amy's. So Every senior nursing student at Wagner, their second semester senior year, we get a preceptorship. So it's like you're in doing clinical rotations in the hospital, but you're kind of assigned to like one nurse and like you learn directly from them. Before that, there are like in summers, there are like externships you can apply for. So it's kind of like where you're working as a nurse's aide, but you're not like but you also work alongside like the nurses. So it's like a little bit above like a CNA. Um, so there's those opportunities, but we also at school do clinical for every class that we have. So like this semester, I took peds, OB, and med surg. So I did like a pediatric rotation at Rumsey for 6 weeks. I didn't get to do my OB rotation because we were online, but we did like VSIMs like virtually, which were really great for learning. And then I have a med surg clinical that I went to, and then that will continue into next semester when we'll do med surg again, and then a psych rotation. So you kind of get to see like all the different parts like of the hospital to like figure out kind of what kind of nurse you want to be. But it's not necessarily like internships. We do more clinical hours, but there are like externships available that you can totally apply for, but it's not something that's necessary.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then I have another question that came in that is directly related to internships. So I think, Jessica, you've spent a summer on campus, if I remember correctly. Is that true?
I spent a summer interning, but because I live so close to the city, I was actually home.
Okay, well, that's fine either way, but maybe I'll direct this question to you. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the difference between interning during the summer versus during the school year, because of course you're not in class. But the question that came in is, if you have a summer internship, are you allowed to live on campus? Majority of the times, that answer is yes, unless for some reason housing is limited. But for the majority of students that are, working in the city with an internship, especially if you're interning, for credit or something like that, you can definitely live on campus during that summer. But yeah, maybe if you want to touch on what a summer internship looks like. Yeah.
Sure. So I interned at the Whitney Museum of American Art over last summer, so the summer between my sophomore and my junior year. And that internship was actually really interesting because I got to work 40 hours a week. So I was doing a full commute at normal commuting hours for, rush hour on public transportation. I was in the city 40 hours a week doing that internship. And I really enjoyed it because it kind of gave me not only a sense of, do I want to work in the arts and is this kind of the field I want to go into, but also, is this what I want to be doing 40 hours a week for the rest of my life? And so for me, I learned I can't sit behind a desk for all of that time. I want a job that's more interactive, that deals with more people. And while I greatly appreciate all of my academic year internships, and I've learned a lot from those, when you're kind of going for half a day and then coming back to campus and taking classes, you kind of forget that this might be a real career path that you're doing all the time. And so having a summer internship really kind of solidified this is a career and people do it every day and you're there every day. And so if you have the opportunity to do one, it doesn't have to be in New York City. If you can find one back home, wherever you are, just kind of to get your foot in the door and to do a everyday kind of job over the summer is a really great opportunity to kind of see what life post-graduation will be like.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, and that's definitely very useful info. And I also like the idea that, yeah, you're right. Somebody is kind of doing this job 24/7, right? And so it's good to put yourself in their shoes. I know that a few people have joined us in as attendees, so just a reminder that if you do have questions, feel free to put them into the chat box, and you can direct them directly to me or put them in the little Q&A session, and we'll make sure that they get answered. Sort of stemming off of, internships and class and all this stuff, a lot kind of goes into your academic life as a student and setting you up for your career path. But I think it's also important to note that there is a balance. So what are your guys' like favorite Wagner holidays, we call them, but we have over 60 different clubs and organizations on campus. People are super involved. I know the three of you are very involved with extracurricular activities. So maybe if you want to talk about your favorite event and Like I mentioned, it is a little bit of a balance. So what is your like number one tip for time management at Wagner? Why don't we start with Erin, and then we'll go Amy and Jessica.
Okay, so my favorite Wagner holiday is definitely homecoming. And that kind of stems from when I came on my recruiting trip to Wagner for the water polo team. I came on homecoming weekend, and that's kind of when I like fell in love with Wagner. It was like during that time that I like knew that like this is where like I want to go to college. So it has a lot of like nostalgia for me, and also it's so fun. Um, Now, as far as like a balance between school and life, I'm from Texas, very far from. I had never really been to New York City before, so like I love utilizing like the shuttles and the ferry and going into the city because every time I go, I'm like, wow, like it's so cool that I live here. That and my favorite time of year at Wagner is in the spring, right as it gets warm, oval days. That's classic. I feel like it's a great way to de-stress when the whole school is just outside enjoying the sunshine.
I would say my favorite Wagner holiday is Wagner stock. Um, so which is a little emotional because right now we would have been getting ready for Wagner stock. Wagner stock is a super fun day. It's right before it's the weekend right before finals start. And it's kind of like an all-day musical festival that we have. We have food trucks line our oval. We have all the student organizations have tables with information about them, and then also each table has games. And then we have like big inflatables, and then all day we have student musicians and performers perform, and then usually we have a smaller act perform. And then this is all during the day, and then that night we have our big name act, which is our every spring we have a big performer come, and it's just a concert for all the students, and it's just a really fun way to have fun with your friends before you're all hunkered down for finals, and it's like one last really fun weekend before everyone goes home for the summer. Um, and for time management, what I found really helps me is I usually dedicate 1 or 2 days specifically to doing homework. And then I dedicate the other days for having fun with my friends, hanging out. What my friends and I like to do when we go into the city, when we utilize the shuttles and the ferry, is we will get on the subway and we'll just pick a random subway to get on and then pick a random stop to get off on, and then just explore that area of the city that we've never been to before. Because a lot of people just, especially with the theater department, a lot of people just like to go up to Times Square, rush a Broadway show, and explore the theater district and everything. That sometimes we forget the little hidden gems that are all around. And we also really love to utilize like anything that is really cheap or free, being on a student budget. So there are endless possibilities in the city.
So Amy kind of stole my favorite Wagner holiday, but I have another. I also really love Admitted Students Day. I have been in charge of recruitment for two different organizations for the past year, 2 years or so. And so Admitted Students Day for me holds a really special place because I've gotten to sit on the panels for the past 2 years. I've gotten to meet all of the incoming Seahawks, and that's really special because I like to hear your stories. Like it's less about me getting to tell my story and more about finally like getting to hear from you guys. Where are you coming from? What do you want to do? And seeing how I can kind of tell you about the things that Wagner has that will fit to you, which I love these panels because that's getting to do it even though we can't be face to face. And Admitted Students Day is just so fun. You wake up really early in the morning, you greet everybody. And I actually also, I really love Freshman Move-In, although I haven't participated in it in the past. I will be participating in it this coming fall. So I'm excited to, again, like be with the new kids and kind of get to meet everybody. It'll be great. And then in terms of time management, I was much better about this freshman year than I am now. But I will say one of my best tips is to create a space outside of your room that means work to you. So for me, freshman year, I used the common room all the time in Harborview. I don't think I ever did homework on my bed or at my desk. I only did homework in the common room. And that really helped because it created a space between where I slept and hung out with my friends and ate snacks and watched movies, and then the space where I was going to be dedicated to work and where my brain could know that it was homework time. So that is a really big tip of mine.
Awesome, love that. Thank you so much. We have a few more questions that have come in, one of which I'm just going to answer because it's a pretty quick answer for that. When do students get to make or see their schedule for the first semester? So as an incoming student, you're actually not going to be responsible for making your first semester schedule. Your first semester schedule will consist of 4 classes that our academic office is actually going to plan for you, and you'll be able to see your schedule on your My Wagner portal, and those usually will come out sometime in the middle of the summer. I would say somewhere around mid-July, give or take a couple of weeks. It just depends on processing and getting it out to you guys through our Wagner databases and things like that. But you will be able to have your schedule sometime mid-summer. And you can access your My Wagner portal. That will go live and be made available to our admitted students who have created their all access pass already. That will go live mid-May about. The next question that I have for our panelists, and this was actually a really good segue as Jessica was kind of talking about the common rooms and things like that, is actually about dorm life. So maybe you guys can kind of just touch a little bit on your experience in the dorms. The question that I have is, what are the residence halls like? Are there themed communities? And, generally just kind of what is it like to dorm at Wagner? So why don't we start with Amy, and then we'll go Jessica, Erin.
So I loved living in Harborview my freshman year. I lived on the arts floor, which my year ended up being majority theater. And we just had so much fun together. We would always, whenever we were in our rooms, we would always have our doors open and would always go in and out of each other's rooms. We would have game nights in the common room. Someone that lived on my floor would bring out like their computer, and we'd set up a little projector and watch movies in the common room, and we just had a lot of fun. And it's just like a really good sense of community because you're sharing the bathroom and everything. So like when you're waking up in the morning and you're brushing your teeth and you have a conversation with your neighbor, it's just a lot of fun. And then my sophomore year, I lived in Guild, which was just a little more relaxed, which was nice since I had like a lot more classes that needed a lot more of my attention. And that was my first year that I was interning. And then this past year, I lived on my sorority floor, which was a lot of fun just to be close to everyone and all living in the same space. So any building that has floors with communal bathrooms or any communal spaces, I found are the best to live in because you really have a sense of community on your floor and you really hang out with everyone and get to know everyone, and it's just so much fun.
So I also loved living in Harborview, and I lived on a different themed floor than Amy. I lived on the honors floor, and for me that was really great because as an honor student, your freshman spring, you take a freshman only honors class, and Amy was in this honors class with me, but a lot of the people on my floor all took this genes to genomics class with Dr. Cook, and so the beauty of us all living together meant we could use our whiteboard in our common room to study and ask each other questions and pop in and out of each other's rooms and do homework together. And so it's a different kind of community because it's kind of surrounded around this academic subject, but it was still super fun. We had movie nights, and the really great thing is that people I lived on my floor with, I still live with now, and so it really did build a sense of like community bonds that lasted for a long time. And then I lived in Guild also my sophomore year while I was interning, and I will say it's nice to have suite style living with your own bathroom when you are interning because you can kind of pop in and know that the spaces will be free and you won't be waking people up and opening opening and closing your doors, which was great. And then this year I lived in Foundation, and that was also really wonderful because it's a completely different style of sweet living, because now you have this big common space that you have to share with other people. And it really does help you kind of learn how to share space, how to have responsibilities. And so my suite mates and I all kind of do one thing each in terms of keeping the suite clean. So who cleans the bathroom, who cleans the floors, who wipes down all the surfaces. And it really kind of helps you build those bonds that you're going to need if you're going to move into an apartment with 8 roommates in New York City eventually. And so that's the really great thing I think about Foundation.
Okay, so freshman year, I lived on the 7th floor of Harborview. And because I'm on the water polo team, my coach tries freshman year to put all of the girls like on the same floor. So I lived on the 7th floor. On the side that I lived on, it was like the water polo team, and there was a couple of girls who didn't play sports. And on the other side of the floor, because I lived on an all girls floor, it was like a lot of the lacrosse and track girls. So my experience in Harborview was really great because I was on a floor with people who had similar schedules as me. You know, like we all got up early in the morning, we went to bed early, so things were never really like loud whenever we needed to sleep because the whole floor had early morning practice. And it was actually really nice living on a floor that was all girls because it was like we were just such like a close community. And I know that we all hung out in our common room like together, and of course it was nice to live near my teammates and like be with my friends right from the start. And then sophomore year, I also lived in Guild. I lived on the honors floor. And I really enjoyed Guild. I loved living there. I liked having my own bathroom. Thought that was like such a good thing. Another thing that I really appreciated about Guild was like the Guild classroom downstairs, that it was kind of just a place that was like in the same building that you could go and like study or just like get out of your room without actually having to leave the building, which is convenience is always nice. And then this year I lived in Towers, and we had a suite with a common room. So I loved living in Towers. I really enjoyed the common area space that like we all had to like hang out like with our friends, and people were always over. And I just really like when I lived in Guild versus Towers, I felt like there was so much more of a like community for me in Towers just because that's where most people live and I had that common room. So I did love living there. And the next year I'm gonna live in Foundation. So 1 year in each building.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We do have another question from some of our attendees. So what is the vibe like living in Staten Island? Are there interesting things to do that keep things fresh and exciting? Examples like markets, festivals, concerts, etc. Why don't we start? We'll start with Jessica, then Erin, then Amy.
So I have not spent a lot of time exploring Staten Island, but I will say that one of the best things that happened while I've been at Wagner is that the Empire Outlets opened down by the ferry. I don't have a car on campus, and while it is very easy to get into New York City someday or into Manhattan some days, I really don't want to take the Staten Island ferry. But if I needed like toothpaste, I'd have to go all the way into downtown Manhattan. And so now that there's the Empire Outlets there with a Walgreens and a Starbucks, I use that space all the time to go pick up toiletries, to go get like clothing items. There's like an Old Navy over there. If I need like a black shirt for something, I can go to Old Navy. And another really good off-campus place to study. I use that Starbucks to study all the time. The people there are so nice. But also something I will say, which I haven't explored yet, but my roommate is taking an environmental history class, and she's talked about fresh kills and how beautiful that is supposed to be. And so hopefully when we come back in the fall, we're going to take a trip down there and kind of see the park and wander around, which I hope will be nice. They have some visit days in the fall.
Similar to Jessica, I also don't have a car on campus. So I have not spent like a ton of time like driving around Staten Island. However, I agree that the Empire Outlets opening has been one of the best things that's happened since being at Wagner. My favorite thing is they have all the benches right by the water, and you have like a great view of the city So sometimes when I just like need to like unwind or relax, I'll go sit by the water and just like read or get Starbucks, and then just I love just like sitting. I love sitting by the water, so that's one of my favorite things to do there. I've gone to the beach a couple times when the weather's nice. I have not swim in the water, but we do live on an island. There is a beach, and it's nice when the weather is sunny and beautiful. And then also I know that sometimes for training we'll run around Clove or Silver Lake. And they're walking distance from campus, and they're also great places just to go like hang out outdoors and get off campus for a little bit.
I think one of the most beautiful places on Staten Island is Snug Harbor. It's just a very historical place, and there's in the spring, it is in full bloom. There are so many flowers, and it's so beautiful and gorgeous. In the winter, there are a couple light festivals around that are really cool and are very good for picture ops. But one thing I have found, since I don't have a car on campus, I am close with a lot of commuters. So even just like asking them to drive me to the store or something and help or go with me to pick something up, and just like kind of driving around with them through Staten Island and just seeing like the different areas of the island and like the different houses and everything, and just kind of seeing the island through their eyes is really fun. I've got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And they also know the best places to get food and to get treats like Rita's, and there's ice cream, and everything is just, it's awesome to just have like that sense of friendship with them and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else that I will mention, something that's interesting about Staten Island as well, is that even though you are in a New York City borough, Staten Island is the most residential borough. So it's definitely interesting to kind of see that contrast, because in a half hour you can be in downtown Manhattan and be in the middle of all the hustle and bustle. But then you do have a nice, like, quiet place to kind of come back to at campus at the end of the day. And while we are talking about Staten Island and campus, another question for you guys: can you address the security, and then in parentheses, mom question? But it is a good question. So if you guys want to talk a little bit about security, on campus, if you guys want to mention anything important about public safety, we do have the blue light system on campus as well. So why don't I throw it to Jessica, and then Amy and Erin, if you guys have anything to add as well, you guys can follow in.
Sure. So I think that our public safety is amazing. I'm trying to see if I have like a story to back that up with, but actually, I mean, I think it's probably a testament to say I don't have a story that I can back that up with. I have never really needed to call public safety for any problems other than like I'm locked out of my dorm room, or I'm sick and I need someone to drive me over to health and wellness because I can't get over there myself. They're really responsive. I will say there's someone, we have a 24-hour booth. If you've ever been to campus, they're the people who greet you when you drive on through the main entrance, and that booth is always manned. And so if you want, you can download the Wagner app right now, and you'll be able to see that you can just click the public safety button and it'll call the booth for you. So you don't even, I would recommend saving the number, but you don't even really have to save the number because it's always available through that app. And if you have any problems or questions, there's always someone there. I've called, at 1 a.m. because I've been locked out, and someone has answered and come. They're really amazing. And Monica, who runs public safety, is around all the time. She knows what's happening on campus, which is really great. As you can see, we all love her so much. And so the really great thing is they're always up on what's happening on campus. So it's not like, you'll call them and say like, oh, I'm at Wagner Stock and I need you to drive me somewhere. And they'll be like, what is Wagner Stock? Like, Monica knows, and she's told everyone on her team that it's happening, and they have golf carts ready for you if you need to go somewhere. Like, everything is all set and ready. So I can't speak highly enough about them.
To kind of go off of that, our freshman year, there was a blackout on campus because of a car accident that happened down the road. It knocked power out to the majority of campus except for one of the newer built the newer buildings, but public safety was there and around. It was a little spooky because, there are none of the lamps were lit, but what the public safety officers did was they all took their golf carts and put them at different areas on campus and put the high beams on so we could all still have light when we were walking around. And even though with the fog, it kind of looked like an apocalypse, I still felt extremely safe with all of them. They had flashlights for all of us, and then were stationed in all of the buildings with RAs, and just helping us if we had any questions. And they were really manning the front gate since there was no power to control the arm anymore, and just were really good at keeping us safe during that time.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that much left to say. Public safety is great. I personally have never felt unsafe at Wagner, and I think it's because I know that help is always seconds away if I need it. So I again can't speak more highly of them.
Thank you guys so much. I think that definitely answered that question. And I do want to mention also, just kind of backtracking a little bit, because when we were talking about campus and being having cars on campus on Staten Island, I know something that is often asked is about having a car on campus and also parking. So there is free parking available to all of our students and visitors as well, which in New York City is definitely a blessing. And then I would also mention that any student is eligible to have a car on campus. So if you are thinking that you might want to bring a car, you absolutely can. All you have to do is that when you do come for move-in, you will just get a registration sticker from public safety that you just put on your back window, just so that they know that you are a member of the Wagner community who's parking in our lot. So you can definitely do that as well. Just because we are starting to approach a little bit of the end, if anybody has any last minute kind of questions that you would like to send in, make sure you do that. But for now, as sort of a closing word, I guess, from our panelists, what do you guys think is the #1 reason that you would recommend Wagner to a friend? Why don't we start with Amy, and then we'll go Erin and end it with Jessica.
So I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I'm also a tour guide. So if I share this story at the end of all of my tours about why I chose Wagner and why I recommend it, I really want to move to New York City after my graduation. But I know that if I went to school directly in Manhattan, that the stress of school and my classes might have ruined Manhattan for me. So I really wanted a separation of the two places, but I still wanted that New York experience. I still wanted to be able to go in and out of the city when I wanted to and when I needed to. So that was a big thing that I was looking at when I was looking at schools. And then I came across Wagner because I have a lot of friends that are much older than me and have graduated by now. I knew them from home, and they spoke so highly of Wagner. And when I came here and just saw everything on campus, it ticked off all my boxes for me. And just the major thing is I was looking at huge schools before I finally came back to looking at Wagner. And I just knew I didn't want to be another face in the crowd. I didn't want to be number 372 on the seating chart. I wanted my professors to know who I was. I wanted to sit at my graduation and know the other people that were walking across that stage with me. And that is why I recommend Wagner. You will be able to have those relationships with your professors. You will be able to know almost every single person in your grade. And it is very easy to have friends in more than one major. And just the community at Wagner is so wonderful. And you will walk around campus, like the 5-minute walk from your dorm to main hall, you will see 10 people you know. And it just makes you feel so welcomed and happy when you're walking across campus and you have people saying hi to you from far away. So that's why I would recommend Wagner.
So I actually completely agree with Amy. Like I said before, like when I came to Wagner during homecoming, like that's when I fell in love with Wagner and like the community that was there and that like the whole school was out. And I love, like, just like Amy said, I feel like I'm just going to repeat everything you said. Like when you walk around campus and you always see a friendly face, a familiar face, Wagner's just such a close knit community. And you always there's always somebody there with a smile, which I love, and that's probably my favorite part about Wagner and why I would recommend it.
So yes to everything Amy and Erin said, but also for me, there's this general rule in life that says you can't do everything. But at Wagner, I don't think that rule applies. And I've yet to find someone who hasn't been able to do everything that they want to do while at Wagner. I looked at bigger schools and I looked at places where I would be one of 40,000 undergraduate students. And my biggest concern was that I wouldn't get to participate in all of the things I wanted to do. I wouldn't have the room to make my schedule with 3 days off so that I could do an internship. And I wouldn't have, the ability to join 6 different clubs because they would all meet at the same time and be, spread out across this 5-acre campus. Like, I really wanted a place where I could know everybody and do everything that I wanted to do. And because Wagner is so small and so flexible, you really can do everything that you want. And there are so many opportunities, and the opportunities are not exclusive to, like, you can join our newspaper even if you're not a journalism major or minor. Like, if you just want to write for the paper, write for the paper. No one's going to stop you. And so I really love that about Wagner. And kind of when I knew that this was the community that I was like happiest to be a part of was my like second day of being at Wagner, which was early because I moved in for marching band. I had a student who was a junior at the time, I think, just come up to me as I was walking past the Union and say, "I don't know you." And I was like, "Oh, like, I'm Jessica, I'm from Long Island, all of this stuff." He also happened to be from Long Island, and we just started chatting, and he was like, "You better get used to this because Wagner is so small that everybody knows everybody. So when they don't know your face, they're gonna come up and ask who you are and just chat with you." And he was right. That happened so many times that first week and still happens now. And so it really is a great place to kind of get to know everybody and really learn about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So well said. I totally echo all of your statements. As an alum of Wagner myself, I think that, everything that these panelists have had to say has been so valuable and definitely showcases all of the things that I also love most about Wagner. So thank you guys so much. Since we don't have any more questions from our attendees, I'm going to say that this session has come to a wrap. So thank you again so much to our panelists, and thank you to our attendees for joining us today as well. If you guys do have any additional questions that come up later, you can absolutely feel free to send them off in our Facebook page, the Class of 2024 Facebook page, or you could always, shoot an email to admissions. If you do want to get in contact with any of our students, you can definitely also reach out to admissions, and we'll put you in contact with maybe some of our panelists today or any other students that you may want to have a chat with and ask your questions. So with that, thanks again, and I will hopefully see you all very soon. Have a great rest of the day.